Hey guys, what's up? We're going to be talking about the show The Undoing. So, The Undoing is very similar to the show Sharp Objects, stylistically and the way it's shot, which I believe actually they have the same producer, but this is kind of a murder mystery whodunit, and I thought we could talk about what went wrong. This show had so much potential. It had so much potential. So, by the way, spoilers ahead. I won't be going into the plot. I'm just going to be there will be spoilers, obviously. So, I think something that's interesting about this show is that it's so rooted in the performances. So, the show is actually very similar to a Lifetime film or a episode of Law and Order SVU or something like that, but it's just shot brilliantly, and the acting and some of the dialogue is just really well done, especially on the acting side. But I think that's where it kind of hits its wall. So if we're talking about plot, the plot is very interesting because once you don't really know it until you finish the show. When you're watching the show, the plot is very gripping, and it's very captivating. Almost from episode to episode, you really want to figure out what's happening next. Then when you finish the show, you realize very little happened. It could have been done in probably 2 episodes. I'm not saying it should have, but it could have been pretty easily done in 2 episodes. That being said, I actually think it needed more episodes. I think that could have helped it, especially at the end, and we'll talk about that. But actually, the part of the problem is a lot of nothing was happening. When you have a show that's so stylistically beautiful, the way the cinematography is and the way that it really allows the actor to just breathe, part of the problem is then you have issues with, is the plot doing anything? Because right here, the plot wasn't doing anything. There are a lot of shots of just Nicole Kidman walking and Hugh Grant staring, and you get what it's for. Oh, what are they thinking and who's done it? Totally got it. But that in and of itself does not allow for the plot to I guess, be fully developed. So I think something they could have done when it comes to the plot is they really could have delved deeper into what the first episode was about. The first episode was about Elena's kind of integration into just awful high society life. And they do this really interesting thing where you try to figure out, okay, so this might be an expose on what it's like to be in the wealthy society and the things that you would do morally that are irrepressible, that you don't know if you were going to do it or not, and what would you do to save the society, and how you view other people, and what that impact is on people who are not of that society. Elena, for example. That would have been amazing. But honestly, after the first episode, a lot of those awful characters, like the friend who was a lawyer and things like that, who's just a terrible, terrible human being, you kind of just forgot that she was a terrible human being. That they're all just judgmental, awful people. They're just terrible, terrible human beings that they like to silo against other people, and they act like they have an impact in this world, like that gala, but they don't. Yeah, they didn't fix any of that. They didn't go into any of it. They didn't do any type of reflection on it. They didn't do exposing the truth. None of that. And I think that was a missed opportunity that would have really hit home. I think people actually forgot that that's what happened in the first episode. Something that I think we can think about is, more often than not, the show let the characters' performances really shine, but they didn't really dive deeper into them. It was honestly just a lot of Hugh Grant and Nicole Kidman crushing it. But they didn't give them enough to work with. They didn't give them opportunities to hit arcs correctly. They didn't give them opportunities to, peak in terms of emotion and then crash. And it was honestly just a lot of Nicole Kidman just trying to act her butt off. And Hugh Grant trying to subvert expectations or divert assumptions. Better way of putting it, actually. Divert assumptions. And they did that, but they could have done so much more, especially with how strong their performances were. And honestly, the ensemble cast was amazing. Breakout star being Haley, the lawyer. I don't know her name, but she was amazing. But everybody, even the kid, was just like, they did a good job. Everybody was super solid. So the plot really is what held it back. Now, outside of the plot, I think something you can also take into consideration is the fact that they really tanked the finale. I think that's where it really failed. By the way, when I'm talking negatively, I will also go a little bit more into their performances about why they were so good and what was great about it. But for now, we're just talking about the weaknesses. I don't even know what happened. So something that could have fixed the finale, one, should have been 2 episodes. It should have ended the moment Nicole Kidman's character betrayed Hugh Grant. That should have been it. That scene in the courtroom was super compelling. Really made you want to know what was going to happen next. It was a really well done. That whole aspect of her betraying him was rushed. Like, she just like decided. You kind of knew when she decided, but they didn't really explain that. And we'll talk about that in a second. But I think if they would have expanded that, it would have allowed Nicole Kidman's element, which is episode 6, to have breathed, and then Hugh Grant's performance in the 7th one to really shine. Oh my God, he was doing such a good job in that, and it was just such a bad finale that I felt awful for him. Something that was also rushed and that I was just about to talk about was character motivations. Nicole Kidman decided that, okay, Hugh Grant's not good for her son, and I kind of remember the scene with the boy on the windowsill, and he's like, what do you want? And she's like, I just want what's best for you. And she slept on it, and she kind of decided, and then she did the whole scheme. I don't know, this whole episode, and now she does it. It wasn't even when they found the murder weapon, which is what Haley said it was. It was actually just when she talked to her son. Felt a little weak to me. I think it could have really been like the breaking point of Nicole Kidman trying to figure out like whether or not she really believes him, whether or not it's all been a lie, which she really couldn't bring herself to believe. Like, that would have been great. They didn't do any of that. So that was weak. Then for the finale. Oh, what was that? What was that? I don't even know what to tell you. It was just, why did they make it some Hallmark car chase scene? They even did a lot of scenes of just the cars, like, just watching them drive. Hugh Grant was doing an awesome thing, but they even messed up the way they timed it so that when he revealed that it was actually him who did it, it didn't even hit anything. It didn't hit anything at all. So that was something that like really upset me. I was really sad by how they did that. Also because they could have showed in episode 7, if they would have added it, just that whole scene of him and Elena. And they could have flowed that better. Made it much quicker. Like this into his thoughts, this into his thoughts, this into his thoughts, this into his thoughts, until like the reveal. And it's his, and then you could see it on his face. See the person, the undoing of this person who was trying to be a good person for most of his life, and then just all of it's undone, which is just like the theme of this story. So that was a huge mess up. Also, Hugh Grant's character motivations, like, they kind of made him just like crazy. Like, I don't think his character really would have. I could see him doing stuff and having a date with his son and then going and maybe committing suicide, but I could never see him. I don't know, the way he like almost crashed the car a few times, that didn't make any sense to me. That didn't seem like in character, especially a survivor. I could see a survivor breaking and then committing suicide, but he like just didn't care about him, and he didn't care about his son. And he was talking about how his son was his legacy. His son was this big legacy, and then he almost killed him, but then they like narrowly avoided it. What if he wouldn't have avoided that? What is this, Fast and Furious? They literally did a scene from Fast and Furious pretty much in the movie where he dodges the truck. Why? The ending, the very ending, it literally ended with him on the bridge, Nicole Kidman in a helicopter with her son, and then ended. I think they thought that was like a really strong, sharp ending. It was a really abrupt. Like, there's a difference between a really pointed, it hits, it sticks, over. Like Joker, him on the car, over. Like, that's like a pointed thing. Him on the car, finally transitions to Joker, pointed, abrupt, end. Boom. That's strong. This was just abrupt and felt weird and off-putting, in my opinion. So that I didn't understand. Like, But before we talk about the good, the biggest problem with the whole show was that it didn't understand what it was. It didn't understand if it was a whodunit or an reflection and dissection of what it's like to be a woman or a human being, spouse, who finds out that their partner might not be who they think they are. Kind of what you see in a Hallmark movie, but really actually diving into it, the realness of that. Imagine the people who find out their like partner is a murderer. What that's like. You shared a life together, and then you just find that out. That's just the most brilliant show. They could have done that, but no, they did like half that, and then half they did a whodunit. Most people think it's a whodunit, but it really wasn't. It was, especially because there was no there's a way to like still do that. Nicole Kidman really figuring out who she is and what it is to be that person in that position, which is awful, and still made it a little bit like you don't know if the husband did it or not. No, they made it like, oh, Donald Sutherland did it to protect her. He hated the husband and protected his daughter and his legacy. Maybe the son did it to protect the dad. Maybe, Nicole Kidman really did it because she's really spacey and really weird. They could have been like, they like did all of that, and then they focused on this part. So you really couldn't love either, because in the end it was just the husband anyways, which they didn't even hit that point where it was like, oh man, I thought it was everyone else and it couldn't have been Hugh Grant. Shoot, that was genius. It didn't hit that. And if it did for you, you'd have to explain to me why, because it really didn't. I didn't think it was Hugh Grant. I thought it was Donald Sutherland. Still, I didn't really... When he revealed, he said, oh, he did do it. That should have been a moment, but it wasn't. Now, to end off, I really want to talk about some things that were positive. Whoever shoots these shows, like Sharp Objects and The Undoing, oh my God, that's like some Revenant level quality in its things. Like, those are beautiful shots. I would love to just be in front of that camera and just be like, tell me what to do and I'll do it, just so I can be in front of this camera, because you shoot things beautifully. Shots of like Hugh Grant on news at the end when he's like, I do think I know who did it. This, like, the contrast in his, oh God, it's so well done. And they were so, the weight of the scenery and the way it was shot had so much gravitas to it. But then the character performances were so nuanced. But because the camera work was so good, you could see every single detail on their acting of like every expression they did. It was brilliant. Second, we can just talk about the acting for a second. Nicole Kidman, it was distracting that she'd gotten so much surgery and fillers and stuff like that done. I get that. Even with that, she was brilliant. There were certain scenes that she just took my breath away, which I know a lot of people were like, really? Was it? No, it was. I would say go back and look at the scene where she, which I actually think is the last episode, where she talks to the son about the hammer. Like right afterwards. I think that's the beginning of episode 6. She talks to them about the hammer. Just go look at that scene again. Look at the expression on her face, the arc that she has in that scene of, did my son do it? Why did you do this? Why didn't you listen to me? Did my husband do it? No, wait, but maybe I don't know what's happened. All of that was just in that. She didn't say anything. It was really, really well done. She played that little spaced out, but it was actually her just trying to reflect on the life that has been destroyed really, really well. I thought that was really good. I think they could have given her more. There was a little bit too much of the same type of character motivation in a scene and how she would act and things like that. Because she was on her game, they could have given her more and given her certain arcs, but she had so much. There was so much, like, she understood how to keep the thing of being a high life society person, trying to have poise, trying to have, but like not a nice level of poise, like a gross, like they don't want to show the truth because they're better than everyone poise, while also trying to kind of be by her husband, but then not be by her husband because she feels betrayed, but does she just one after another, just like she piled all of those layers on, and with very little dialogue did a lot. And then when she had dialogue, she really sold that dialogue. Now, the other person I want to talk about, there were a lot of good performances. Haley, we talked about, she sold shark, like the shark in the courtroom, really well. Oh my god, I was intimidated by that. I was intimidated the crap out of her. My favorite performance was Hugh Grant. The only thing, before I talk about the great, the only thing I would say is that certain times he was showing too much suspicion in himself. There was a little too much rage in him and frustration, anger, and like a little bit of forcedness, like lots of you forced emotion. But the thing is, I understood 100% of the why he did all of those choices. I think they were all choices because he was a sociopath. So he didn't actually feel any of those emotions. So he was faking them, but he couldn't fake them well. I think the problem is I didn't think he couldn't fake them well enough. So it actually gave me this sensation that he was like always guilty, even though I didn't think he did it because I thought that would be too obvious. So I thought that was a little off. Now, this was by far Hugh Grant's career best performance. God, everything about it was great. The nuances of him being undone. Like, he sold it. He sold the frustration of being undone. And in his mind, he was undone right there. But if you actually think about it, his character was always a lie. Like, if you saw him with Elena, he wasn't remorseful about cheating. He wasn't remorseful about any of it. He was not a good person. He was just a person who was doing child oncology, and like, he didn't care. Just like as he said about his mom said about him and his sister, he just didn't care. And I think like that element of it was really interesting because he played the undoing element of like what he believes as a character so well. We know the truth, but his character believes that he just became undone and all go back to normal. I believed every second of it. I believed even when he was BSing and I totally thought it was BS, he was selling me that BS. He was selling the charm of Hugh Grant, but he added an element of creepiness, which he doesn't usually have. I don't even know how he did it. He's usually just a charming, innocent, naive kind of guy. He was that charming guy. But imagine if that charming guy was a little creepy. Perfect example is the song Someone Like You by Adele. Love ballad, right? Now listen to an E minor version of it. It's actually a very creepy song when you do it that way. It's all about the very small distinction and the small things you can do to make an entire impact and the entire connotation of something completely different. That was what Hugh Grant did in this performance versus every other performance he did. He did this immediate flip on its head while staying core to what he can do and what his strengths are. I think the one aspect I would say about both of their characters, about what they did, and it had to do also with the cinematography. They did so much with their eyes. I was mesmerized, absolutely mesmerized by what they were doing with their eyes. I would say go back and watch it again just to watch what they were selling there. So people think that's like a very easy thing. It's not. Maybe some people are just focused on their acting and their eyes, but they're not usually. But Hugh Grant sold me so much. I was scared of him, but I felt sorry for him. I was charmed by him, and I was creeped out by him. There were so many conflicting feelings, and it was all due to his performance. It wasn't even due to dialogue. The dialogue was okay, but it was really due to their performances. Would I say it was worth the watch? I enjoyed watching it simply for their performances and some of the cinematography. I'm more sad of the potential of what this show could have been. Had the director and the writer known what direction they wanted to go in and really focus on that. If they wanted to go a whodunit Knives Out type of thing, they should have done that. If they wanted to do like a breakdown of what it would really be like for somebody to know their partner is a murderer, they could have done that. I would have done this, by the way. This, in my opinion, was where this was supposed to go. But they didn't do either, and they went halfway in the middle. And as we know, anytime you go halfway in the middle, you tend to not do well in both accounts. On that note, please tell me what you think, if you loved it or didn't. I still think the show was worth the watch. The ending was very disappointing, but it was only 6 episodes, so can I really hate it that much? I didn't feel like it was that much of a waste of time. I still loved the previous 5 episodes for what they were. I think it could have had a nice couple of last episodes that really sold it in the end, and I would have loved it, and I still would have had certain criticisms that I had, but it would have really done a much better job for me. But let me know what you guys think. I'll try to do more of these, and on that note, I'll see you guys in the next one. All right.